Now, I'm going to talk about two things James Rolfe, aka AVGN, sort of briefly mentioned in his chronologically confused rant, but didn't particularly go much depth into. The first would be the CDI Legend of Zelda games. So, he mentioned how, they're basically piles of shit, but that's basically not the reason why they're not counted. They're not counted because those games were made by Philips, not Nintendo. Philips won a lawsuit against Nintendo once they bailed out of backing the Philips CDI system. So that's why we have, Hotel Mario and the Zelda Wand of Gamelon and so forth. So that is the main reason those games are not really counted. It's also basically why we don't count Hotel Mario as a game. I mean, it'd be the equivalent of Marvel Comics winning a lawsuit against DC and therefore got to make a couple Batman comics. Yeah, they technically be made, but no one would really count them because they're not made by their original license source. I mean, and the other reason is, gee, I wonder what's going on in the game. Well, it sucks, that's what. So those are the two reasons why the Philips CDI Zelda games do not count, basically at all. But then again, they do serve one purpose, because otherwise, where would we get all our lovely YouTube hoops from? Hooray, crappy animation and voice acting. The second thing James Rolfe mentioned, and did not particularly expand upon, was the Smash Brothers Zelda characters. You would think that a spin-off game such as Smash Brothers would really get no mind or attention to in terms of its logistics, but oddly enough, this has been a subject for debate, at least at first, and then once Brawl came out, it basically reared its ugly head once again. In Smash Brothers 1, of course, we got Link as a playable character, an adult Link, mind you. Everyone, when we first saw it, said, oh, it's Ocarina of Time Link. After all, it's the newest game, and it's the latest game to have, the adult form of Link, and it's also the same exact character model. So, well, it has to be the Ocarina of Time Link if anyone's really even particularly caring. But there was one hitch to this thing that Link uses the boomerang, and he never used that as an adult in Ocarina of Time. Now, most people, including me, basically thought that was, a minor thing. Oh, Link just happens to use the boomerang in this game. But oddly enough, we did get a mention of this, I believe, by Sakurai, the creator of Smash Brothers. I don't have the exact article in front of me. If someone could, find that, that'd be greatly appreciated. But he basically said it could just, be Smash Brothers Link. Have absolutely no relation to any of the Zelda game links. But if you believe that it's an Ocarina of Time link, you can technically be right as well, because it's never clearly mentioned. So it could be a new link altogether, or it could be Ocarina of Time link, and he just happens to know how to use the boomerang. Both are technically right, but just about everyone I knew said it was Ocarina of Time link, because it was the same character model, and so on and so forth. And it wasn't much of a big deal, because it really didn't matter at that particular point in the Smash Brothers games. Now, once we got to Melee, it was pretty much clear that it was the Ocarina of Time Link, Zelda, Ganondorf, and Young Link. Mainly because Zelda turns into Sheik, and of course the only game Sheik ever appeared in terms of the Zelda games was Ocarina of Time. And even though the Zelda stage were from Majora's Mask and Zelda 2, it was everyone, including myself, basically said, oh, it must be the Ocarina of Time characters, because Sheik's in it. Now, again, this isn't much of an issue because at that point, those were still the two latest games to come out, Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, so there wasn't much of an issue. You could still believe they were different, and you would still technically be right, and no one would really care in particular, but this all got fucked up once Brawl was announced, and I will explain why. As you know, in Super Smash Bros. Brawl, we have the Twilight Princess character models for all the Zelda characters except for Toon Link, which is the Wind Waker model, obviously. This was created with some speculation because how could Zelda turn into Sheik if this is the Twilight Princess versions of the characters? After all, Sheik never appears in Twilight Princess. Well, as shown, we got Sheik as a playable character in Brawl in a Brawl character model, or Twilight Princess character model, excuse me. So this basically created a huge clusterfuck Because, after all, Link has weapons from Twilight Princess, such as the Gale Boomerang, and Ganondorf has, that glowing sword he has from Twilight Princess, and yet Sheik is in the game, and they're... So, it's like, how can we use the Twilight Princess models if Sheik's in it, but how can it be not be the Twilight Princess guys if, they have all the weapons? So, as I said, this created a huge clusterfuck. So, I personally have no idea what was going on, and very few people I know really have any ideas either. It's kind of just, whatever, let's just stop thinking about it, because this is getting beyond confusing. Personally, I think this is like the Boomerang exception. It's the Twilight Princess them, and just Sheik just happens to be in it, so they could keep Zelda's movesets intact, but that's really the only thing I could really come up with. So if you have your own theories on that, feel free to explain them. I'd be interested in hearing in them, especially involving Sheik, because I read somewhere that Sheik was supposed to be in Twilight Princess at some point, but they axed it because they couldn't really find a place to do it. So that's just the end of the Smash Brothers Zelda characters and their places in the timeline in particular. So that finishes up the two things I wanted to comment on James Rolfe's video, which I will link in the sidebar once I find the link to that video.